Hello there, friends. Today, we're taking a ride back in time, not just to any car from the past, but to a hidden gem that many of you might have heard rumblings about, or maybe even seen in passing and just didn't know what it was. We're talking about the 1970 Chevrolet Biscayne 454 LS5, a car that didn't look like much, but oh boy, could it move. It's one of those rare machines from a time when cars had real soul, real sound, and raw, untamed power under the hood. It looked like a city fleet car, maybe something a janitor or a government clerk would drive, but it had the beating heart of a Chevelle SS. If you remember the rumble of a V8 echoing down Main Street on a summer evening, or that rush of torque when you drop the clutch at a green light, this one's for you. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's go back to a time when horsepower didn't come with spoilers or badges, but with steel wheels and rubber mats. In the early 1970s, cars had personalities. The Chevelle was flashy, the Camaro was wild, and the Corvette, well, that was the dream car. But the Biscayne? That was the workhorse, the utility man. No chrome, no bucket seats, and definitely no frills. In the US, the Biscayne was the car you got when you had to get a car, but couldn't afford anything extra. Cops drove them. Taxi companies bought them in bulk. No one dreamed of drag racing in one, until Canada came into the picture. See, General Motors in Canada had slightly different rules. Up north, you could order your humble Biscayne with something absolutely ridiculous, the LS5 454 cubic inch V8. That's the kind of engine you'd find in a full-blown muscle car like the Chevelle SS. But here, it was sitting in a car most people ignored, and that's where the magic started. Now, if you were living in Canada in 1970 and knew the right dealership, or maybe had a cousin who worked behind the parts counter, you could custom order a Biscayne with the LS5 engine. This wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a real option, offered quietly, and almost never advertised. You could get the 454 big block, making 360 horsepower and an earth-moving 500 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 4-speed Muncie manual transmission. Imagine this, you walk into a dealership asking for the cheapest car on the lot, and walk out with something that could roast tires through first, second, and maybe even third gear. No badges. No SS stripes. No spoilers. Just a vinyl bench seat, maybe a column shifter, and enough torque to tow a house. This was the kind of car you could drive to work Monday through Friday and scare the pants off your neighbors at the drag strip on Saturday night. If you're someone who appreciates a simpler time, when life was less about gadgets and more about getting your hands dirty, you'd love this car. The Biscayne 454 LS5 wasn't about comfort. It was about purpose. Most of these came without radios. No power steering. No air conditioning. Just steel wheels, dog-dish hubcaps, and rubber floor mats. It was built like a tank, sounded like a thunderstorm, and drove like a runaway freight train if you stomped on the pedal. There was something raw and honest about cars like this. Today's machines are fast, sure, but they're also padded, filtered, and packed with screens and sensors. Back then, when you dropped the clutch and lit up the tires, you were in control, and the car let you know it. You felt every vibration, heard every growl, and gripped that steering wheel with both hands as you hung on for dear life. It wasn't a ride. It was a ride. What made the LS5 Biscayne so unforgettable was how forgettable it looked. That's right, this car could blow the doors off a Mustang, but looked like it belonged to the city's water department. No one expected it. That was the beauty of it. It wasn't out to win trophies at car shows or grace the pages of Hot Rod magazine. It was a ghost on the street. You wouldn't give it a second glance, until it smoked your pride and joy at a red light. People today call these sleepers, cars that look slow but are secretly fast. But back then, this was something more. This was rebellion. It was a quiet kind of power, the kind that didn't need to shout. It reminded us that flash isn't everything. That the strongest punch can come from the quietest guy in the room. And for the older crowd among us, doesn't that sound a little familiar? Today, finding a real deal 1970 Biscayne 454 LS5 is almost impossible. Many were wrecked. Others were crushed, gutted for parts, or simply forgotten. But those few that remain are now prized by collectors and muscle car lovers who know exactly what they're looking at. They're more than just cars, their history on wheels. Proof that in the muscle car era, there were still secrets waiting to be uncovered. If you were lucky enough to see, or drive, one of these back in the day, you've got a memory worth its weight in chrome. And if you've never heard of it until now? Well, now you know. This was a car that didn't chase glory. It earned it. Quietly. Powerfully. And completely on its own terms. The 1970 Chevrolet Biscayne 454 LS5 isn't just a rare car, it's a reminder. A reminder of a time when cars were built tough, when engines roared instead of hummed, and when performance didn't need polish. It was a car that old-school mechanics respected, young hot rodders admired, and most folks completely overlooked. And maybe that's why it was so special. Because it didn't try to be cool, it just was. So whether you're a lifelong car enthusiast, or just someone who remembers the good old days of thundering V8s and long weekend drives, I hope this trip down memory lane brought a smile to your face. And hey, if you ever spot a plain-looking old Chevy with steel wheels and a certain growl under the hood, look again. You just might be looking at a legend,